in collaboration with UNICEF and government partners, we established a house for children and youth aimed at breaking the cycle of recruitment of children and adolescents by armed gangs. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, you will therefore understand that the topic under discussion today directly concerns me, because I lead an organization that works daily in the field and witnesses the anguish caused by the insecurity generated by the proliferation of weapons in my country, where firearm-related homicides are rising sharply. Let us be clear. Possession of firearms in Haiti is permitted by the Constitution, which states that every citizen has the right to possess a firearm, provided they have a permit. Indeed, in Article 268.1 of the Constitution, it provides that every citizen has the right to armed self-defense within the limits of their home, but may not carry a firearm without the express and justified authorization of the Chief of Police. Today, the massive trafficking and circulation of illegal firearms in Haiti remains a source of major concern, despite the arms embargo imposed by the UN Security Council since 2022, along with a sanctions regime monitored by a group of experts. However, the proliferation of weapons persists due to weak enforcement mechanisms and the continued activity of criminal networks. Indeed, combined sources estimate that between 270,000 and 500,000 small arms are currently circulating in Haiti, of which only about 45,000 are legally registered. It is clear that these weapons are not only in the hands of the two public security forces recognized by Article 263 of the Constitution, namely the Haitian National Police Force and the Armed Forces of Haiti. It is well known that numerous armed gangs in Haiti possess large numbers of firearms, and that, on the other hand, many individuals and private security agencies acquire weapons, particularly in the current climate of deepening insecurity. Small arms and light weapons are widely used in Haiti in cases of community violence, armed clashes between rival groups, and criminal acts. Their use results in countless injuries, deaths, intimidation, and numerous cases of internal displacement with devastating health and humanitarian consequences. Between July 2004 and February 2025, more than 4,200 people were killed and 1,356 injured by firearms, according to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Access to firearms in Haiti has also led to an increase in suicides, homicides, and accidental deaths from stray bullets. The proliferation of firearms in Haiti also fuels widespread insecurity, paralyzing political, economic, and social life in the country. Today, the security situation has deteriorated to the point that land transport between the capital and provincial cities is nearly impossible. Haitian families are desperate. Armed gangs and organized crime organizations control almost all territory in the metropolitan area and in the Artibonite and Center departments, recruiting youth as operational agents for kidnappings, armed robberies, executions, and sexual violence. This bleak situation raises questions among Haitians about whether the country can hold long-awaited elections absent an international security presence since the collapse of institutional order. Haiti does not manufacture weapons. Many enter the country through illicit trafficking. So this raises two questions. What is the link between rising violence and illicit arms trafficking? And what correlation exists between the trafficking of weapons, the arming of gangs, the generalization of violence, and the weakening of the state? Illicit arms trafficking is not only a source of violence, but also it is an exponential multiplier of Haiti's crisis. A draft law in Haiti on firearms and ammunition management was developed 2 years ago with national and international support to modernize the legal framework for arms control, acquisition and possession. However, the law has not yet been adopted, leaving in place outdated provisions that are ill-suited to current realities with the illicit trafficking. This legislative gap and ammunition, aligned with the Caribbean Harmonized Roadmap for Arms and Ammunition Management by 2030. However, unfortunately, political instability and a lack of institutional coordination have hampered its follow-up. In this regard, and concerning firearms, the Haitian state must adopt the draft firearms and ammunition law harmonized with sub-regional legislation under the Security and Justice Working Subgroup of the Inter-Ministerial Task Force on DDRRVC, Disarmament, Demobilization, Reintegration, Reduction of Community Violence, comprising 18 chapters and 187 articles, revised with BINU and UNRELEX support. Centralize arms procurement and distribution, strengthen customs and border controls, improve cooperation between police and customs agencies, and ensure that they are authorized officials, adopt a legal framework regulating acquisition, conduct targeted operations to dismantle effectively illicit trafficking networks, implement disarmament programs to destroy seized weapons, raise public awareness about the risks associated with firearms, provide training on safety and stock management to defense and security forces to ensure better control and protection of armories and ammunition stores. Improve weapons management systems within security institutions to prevent diversion to unauthorized users. And finally, intensify border controls to halt arms trafficking and smuggling. The response strategy must also involve strong participation by Haiti's trading partners. Indeed, countries exporting goods to Haiti must exercise greater upstream vigilance to prevent illegal arms shipments to a country whose fragility is well known, undisputable. And I welcome the U.S. administration, which this year has already seized many arms and assets. I hope that U.S. example is going to be followed by other partner countries. It is also vital to ensure stronger coordination among all stakeholders in implementing the embargo under Security Council Resolution 2794, which extends the arms embargo for another year. This system aims at preventing arms supplies to non-state actors involved in armed violence and illicit trafficking. Combating arms proliferation in Haiti must be linked to the implementation of the national strategy on disarmament, demobilization, reintegration, and community violence reduction. This strategy, prepared by the former CNDDR with BINU and national partners, aims to strengthen coordination between disarmament actions, community prevention initiatives, and socio-economic reintegration of youth who have been exposed to violence. Its implementation is a key lever to reducing the demand for weapons, restoring community trust, and providing human security based on civic responsibility and peace. Similarly, Haiti will need to be able to count on international coordination and support to restore security. In this regard, I welcome the contributions of BNU, UNRELEC, and UNODC, as well as the vote in the Security Council, sponsored by the United States and Panama, of Resolution 2793, mandating the establishment of a gang suppression force. Finally, I appeal to the civic virtues of all Haitians, regardless of their political or social affiliation, to unite in opposing all illicit trafficking of arms and ammunition in order to bring back security, peace, and non-violence, and together rebuild a common path toward the restoration of democratic governance. Thank you. I thank Dr. Descartes for your briefing.
I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Excellencies, members of the Security Council, I thank Mr. Adedeji Ebo, Officer in Charge and Deputy to High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, High Representative for the Silencing the Guns Initiative of the African Union Commission, Ms. Raima Anna Andreani, Special Representative of Interpol to the European Union, and Mr. Arnaud Descartes, Executive Director of Volontaires pour le Développement de Haïti, for their insightful briefings and recommendations. Our briefers have underscored the importance of effective mechanisms to prevent the diversion, proliferation, and misuse of small arms and light weapons, and the urgent need to mitigate their devastating impact on our communities and people, men, women, the youth, and children caught in conflict, as well as their broader consequences for international peace and security. Sierra Leone notes the continued attention the Secretary General places on this issue, including in his October 2025 report, which rightly recognizes that unregulated small arms and light weapons affect every dimension of human security, public health, human rights, social stability, and sustainable development. The report also highlights the destabilizing impact of illicit weapons flows on peace and security, particularly through their linkages to armed conflict, terrorism, violent extremism, organized crime, and emphasizes comprehensive life cycle management from manufacture and transfer to stockpiling, use, and final disposal. There is overwhelming evidence that SALW are among the leading causes of civilian casualties in armed conflict. Because they are relatively cheap, easy to acquire, transport, and conceal, they remain weapons of choice in irregular warfare. With an estimated 850 million small arms in circulation globally, about 650 million in civilian hands, the small arms trade is often cited as among the least transparent of all weapon systems. This demands that the mechanisms we establish, including arms embargoes, remain effective and consistently enforced. At the global level, the 2001 UN Programme of Action on SALW, the 2005 International Tracing Instrument, the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, the UN Register of Conventional Arms, and the 2013 Arms Trading Treaty together provide a comprehensive framework for coordinated action. The instrument guide effort on manufacturing, marking and tracing, stockpile management, legitimate international transfers, and DDR. These instruments underpin the Council's actions through peace operation and mandate, DDR programming, and arms embargoes, complemented by key Security Council resolutions such as 2117, 2220, 2616, and 2654. While challenges remain in implementation and compliance, these frameworks are vital in preventing illicit weapons flows to conflict actors, extremist groups, and criminal networks. Regional initiatives have provided tailored, context-specific responses. As briefed by His Excellency Dr. Chambers, the African Union, through Silencing the Guns and the Bamako Declaration, has shown strong leadership in advancing a nexus approach that links peace, security, development, human rights, and the rule of law. These frameworks recognize that arms proliferation not only fuels conflict, but destroys livelihoods, undermines governance, and reverses development gains. In West Africa and the Sahel, the challenges are acute. The illicit flow of SALW, enabled by porous borders and weak regulatory systems, has intensified terrorism, organized crime, and violent extremism. These realities require coordinated cross-border approaches and the active support of the international community. Recognizing that terrorist and transnational criminal networks increasingly operate in concert, and recalling relevant Security Council resolutions, including Resolution 2370, which underscores the imperative of preventing terrorists from acquiring weapons, we must address the growing nexus enabled by illicit arms flows, porous borders, growing nexus, weak regulatory mechanisms, and emerging threats such as craft-produced and 3D printed firearms. In the Sahel, terrorist groups and criminal syndicates exploit trafficking corridors that move in both directions, linking conflict zones, artisanal mining sites, and coastal hubs, while revenues from illicit economies fund further procurement of weapons and ammunition. In the Caribbean, including Haiti, gangs and criminal networks have expanded territorial control using illicit trafficked firearms, many diverted from lawful markets or smuggled via maritime routes, eroding the rule of law, overwhelming institutions, and impeding development. These dynamics directly undermine the maintenance of international peace and security and demand strengthened weapons and ammunition management, marking and tracing, enhanced border and maritime interdiction, and robust judicial and law enforcement cooperation with regional organizations in Africa and the Caribbean. In response to the report of the Secretary General and in calling for a robust response to prevent the illicit sale, transfer, and export of small arms and light weapons, Sierra Leone wishes to highlight 4 points. First, global and regional frameworks must support national mechanisms for effective weapons and ammunition management. Operational assistance to strengthen legal and regulatory frameworks, institutional coordination, controls over arms transfers, stockpile management, marking, record keeping, and disposal is critical to reducing illicit circulation and preventing diversion to unauthorized users. Sierra Leone has learned from experience that removing weapons from battlefields is not enough. Long-term peace depends on enduring national systems that regulate weapons, prevent diversion, and build public trust. In 2010, we established the Sierra Leone National Commission on Small Arms by Act of Parliament to implement a holistic and integrated system for arms management in line with the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons. The Commission has rehabilitated and secured national armories, implemented marking and registration systems, trained personnel in stockpile management, destroyed obsolete weapons, strengthened civilian arms licensing and retrieval, and partnered with civil society to raise public awareness and encourage voluntary disarmament. This model were highlighted in the area formula meeting we convened on small arms control and weapons management in UN sanctions regimes, sponsored by the A3+ members Algeria, Guyana, and Somalia to address gaps in conflict affect and fragile countries. Second, capacity building remains essential. Many post-conflict states lack the resources or expertise to fully implement international arms control frameworks or manage stockpile safety. Targeted support through training, technology transfer, and infrastructure development can make a decisive difference. We welcome in this regard the establishment of a technical expert group at the 4th UN Review Conference on the Program of Action and International Tracing Instrument in June 2024 to develop recommendations on new development in small arms technology, manufacturing, and design. We also look forward to practical opportunities to apply emerging technologies, including improved digital marking, record keeping, and traceability systems. Third, effective cross-border cooperation is indispensable. As with other states in our region, Sierra Leone faces challenges in regulating small arms flows within and across its borders. Our compliance with international and regional small arms and light weapons commitment has benefited from active participation in ECOWAS mechanisms and collaboration with the Mano River Union neighbors, Liberia, Guinea, and Côte d'Ivoire, to prevent cross-border arms movement. We also work closely through the West African Action Network on Small Arms to improve intelligence sharing, border control coordination, and law enforcement cooperation against illicit trafficking. We recall the African Union Peace and Security Council's 1085th meeting of 18 May 2022, which called for a continental strategy to address illicit firearms and emerging weapon systems and emphasize closer coordination with African members of the UN Security Council. It is in this regard that we have elevated today's discussion on the Secretary General's report on small arms and light weapons to an open debate to generate the appropriate level of attention and action. Fourth, arms embargoes and DDR must be fully integrated into peace processes. Sierra Leone's own experience demonstrates this very clearly. During our civil conflict, fueled by the flow of illicit arms and illicit diamond trade, the Security Council's arms embargo imposed in 1997 was crucial in constraining the conflict. Coupled with the effort of the United Nations mission in Sierra Leone, it created the conditions for peace to take root. The subsequent DDR program successfully disarmed over 70,000 ex-combatants and collected more than 25,000 small arms, 1,000 heavy weapons, and nearly 1 million rounds of ammunition. Achievement made possible because weapons were not being replenished during the peace process. Distinguished Council members, Sierra Leone approaches this issue not from theory, but from lived experience. We know the devastation that unchecked arms and proliferation can cause, and we also know the hope that can be restored when weapons are silenced and peace takes hold. We therefore reaffirm our commitment to combating the spread of small arms and light weapons through strong national systems, effective regional cooperation, and global solidarity. We underscore the critical role of the Security Council in promoting comprehensive approaches that integrate small arms control into peace operations, conflict prevention, sanctions regimes, maritime security, and post-conflict reconstruction strategies. Sierra Leone stands ready to share its experience with post-conflict countries and to work with all partners in building a safer, more peaceful, and secure world. I thank you. I shall now make a statement. I resume my function as President of the Council. And I will give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Gina Kim, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also thank Mr. Adedeji Ebo, His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, Ms. Raina Anna Andriani, and Dr. our new Descartes for their insightful briefings. Well, this meeting is very timely as this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Security Council Resolution 2220, which reaffirms the Council's commitment to preventing and addressing the illicit trade in arms, small arms and light weapons. Yet a decade later, the international community continues to face persistent and increasingly complex patterns of diversion and illicit trafficking, which fuel and prolong armed conflict, organized crime, and terrorism, and undermine stability and sustainable development, especially in fragile and conflict-affected contexts. The Republic of Korea reaffirms its steadfast commitment to the effective implementation of the UN Program of Action, the International Tracing Instrument, and the Arms Trade Treaty. We also welcome the launch of the Global Framework for Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management and recognize the important role in reducing risks posed by inadequately secured or surplus ammunition. We look forward to further strengthening coherence and complementarity among these international instruments. Mr. President, as the body entrusted with the primary responsibility for international peace and security, the Security Council holds a distinct mandate in curbing illicit arms flows through the effective implementation of its arms embargoes. The Republic of Korea strongly supports their full and consistent implementation and continues to contribute to capacity building to assist member states in this regard. We also underscore the indispensable role of panels of experts and relevant subsidiary bodies in monitoring and reporting on compliance. Emerging technologies present both opportunities and challenges for small arms and light weapons control. AI-enabled data systems and enhanced marking and tracing tools can strengthen diversion prevention and supply chain monitoring, while additive manufacturing and modular weapon designs complicate enforcement. The Council should therefore work to responsibly harness new technology while addressing associated risks to ensure that control mechanisms remain effective and fit for purpose. Mr. President, the impacts of illicit small arms flows differ across regions, shaped by various security dynamics. The Republic of Korea supports tailored, context-specific approaches, including strengthened cross-border cooperation and regional capacity building. We also note with concern that the diversion and misuse of small arms disproportionately affect women and girls, and underscore the importance of their full, equal, and meaningful participation in arms control and disarmament processes, consistent with the Women, Peace, and Security agenda. Likewise, youth, who are often among those most directly affected, play a critical role as community leaders and peace builders. Their meaningful engagement is essential to developing sustainable and locally grounded solutions. The illicit proliferation of small arms is a multidimensional issue, intersecting with peace and security, development, human rights, and humanitarian concerns. Addressing it requires coordinated and inclusive efforts at the national, regional, and multilateral levels. In this regard, the Republic of Korea welcomes the Secretary General's biannual report on small arms and light weapons, which provides a comprehensive assessment of related challenges. We encourage the continued strengthening of coordinated efforts to advance effective and sustainable solutions. The Republic of Korea remains committed to working closely with all partners to translate our shared commitment into concrete progress toward a safer and more peaceful world for all. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Kim for the statement. And I will give the floor to the representative of Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Excellency, my delegation warmly welcomed your presence in today's meeting. I want to thank Sierra Leone for convening this important debate, as well as the briefers, Mr. Ebot, Dr. Chambas, Ms. Andriani, and Dr. Descartes, for their insightful remarks. Mr. President, Greece takes note of the alarming key finding of the Secretary General's report on small arms and light weapons that the diversion, illicit transfer, and misuse of small arms and light weapons have continued to lead to violence and acts of crime and terrorism, undermining peace and security at the national, regional, and global levels. I wish to highlight 3 points. First, we must uphold the existing instruments aimed to prevent the diversion of small arms and light weapons. Greece views the UN Programme of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects as the universal framework to address this threat posed by illicit small arms and light weapons. My country remains committed to its implementation and has undertaken the appropriate actions through annual reporting and provision of additional data on arms transactions. Following the successful outcome of the 4th Review Conference on UN Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, we are now calling all states to implement the political declaration and action-oriented measures for the period 2024-2030 as agreed during the conference. We also consider the Arms Trade Treaty as an indispensable tool for curtailing the illicit trade of conventional weapons. We call on all states to ratify or accede to the treaty without further delay and on the parties to comply with their obligations. Moreover, we actively supported the establishment of the global framework for through-life conventional ammunition management. After the preparatory meeting of states held last June, it is important to work together towards an effective follow-up and review mechanism ahead of the first meeting of states scheduled for 2027. Second, the diversion of small arms and light weapons has a strong regional dimension. The Caribbean, the Great Lakes region, the Horn of Africa, and coming to our immediate neighborhood, the Western Balkans, are regions that are suffering the most from widespread diversion of illicit small arms and light weapons. Greece supports regional instruments, processes, and regional cooperation to strengthen border security and export and import licensing systems. We commend the valuable work of the Southeastern and Eastern Europe Clearinghouse for the control on small arms and light weapons. Also, we reiterate our support to the implementation of the Western Balkans Small Arms and Light Weapons Control Roadmap. In Africa, we fully support the African Union's initiative Silencing the Guns as an indispensable tool for sharing information, enforcing embargoes, and building the capacity of affected states to combat illicit arms trafficking. Third, we must address the impact of modern technologies on the production and circulation of small arms and light weapons. As the Secretary General stated in his report, developments in SALW technology, manufacturing and design present both challenges and opportunities to prevent and combat illicit small arms and light weapons. In this regard, we hope that the newly established open-ended technical expert group to be established under the Programme of Action on SALW and the implementation and the International Tracing Instrument will develop recommendations on small arms and light weapons manufacturing, technology, and design, in particular on polymer and modular weapons and firearms produced using 3D printing. We also call upon the Security Council to consider these technological developments, especially when designing the mandates of peace operations. Moreover, Mr. President, we stress the need for this Council to address the role of small arms and light weapons in grave violations against children in its resolution and deliberations, including through the Working Group on Children and Armed Conflict, which Greece is honoured to chair. In conclusion, Mr. President, as an elected member of this Council, Greece will continue to work constructively and inclusively towards strengthening the unity and effectiveness of the Council in ensuring the effective control and management of small arms and light weapons, and thereby to promote peace and security worldwide. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Panama would like to thank Sierra Leone for your leadership and commitment in keeping the Council's attention focused on this issue. And to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Timothy Kabba, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Sierra Leone, thank you for presiding over this meeting. I'd also like to thank the briefers that have honoured us with their briefings today. Very interesting presentations, all of them. In 2024 alone, more than 48,000 deaths related to armed conflicts were recorded. That was an increase of 40% compared to 2023. Small arms and light weapons are directly linked to the persistence and prolongation of violence. Curbing their flow is not only a necessity, it is an indispensable condition for achieving lasting peace. These weapons are true weapons of mass murder. They pose a threat to peace, security, and sustainable development. Therefore, we should not only consider efforts to contain military spending, which reached $2.7 trillion in 2024, but ideally we should also seek to redirect it towards development as a means to prevent conflicts, turning such expenditure into a more lasting investment in the pursuit of security and peace. We are concerned that hundreds of weapons and thousands of rounds of ammunition end up in the wrong hands. As the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has warned, these could be enough to arm a small army. This risk is particularly alarming for countries such as Haiti, where illicit trafficking fuels violence and weakens institutions. President, we also see with concern the growing link between organized crime, armed conflicts, and terrorism, woven together by the illicit trafficking of weapons. This phenomenon multiplies violence, it erodes governance, and prevents trust being rebuilt. We urge all states to strengthen arms control, particularly bearing in mind the Security Council's embargoes, both external, namely to stop illicit trafficking in exports and imports, as well as internal, in order to prevent the diversion of state arsenals. In this regard, we underlined the need for a timely exchange of information and cooperation between states in order to improve traceability, transparency, and the early detection of diversion. President, we are concerned about the emergence of new forms of manufacturing and transfer, such as 3D printed weapons, modular assembly, and digital trading of components, among others, which are benefiting from technological progress. It is urgent that we move towards clear international norms and updated national frameworks to address these challenges. Panama underscores the importance of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration as tools for prevention and reconciliation, particularly in post-conflict contexts, where the proliferation of weapons among former combatants threatens civilian protection. We note that the proliferation of small arms and light weapons disproportionately affects women, increasing sexual and gender-based violence in conflict settings. Therefore, Panama supports the Secretary-General's call to coherently integrate the Women, Peace and Security agenda into arms control processes and DDR programs in order to strengthen peace building. Furthermore, we recall that international humanitarian law and human rights must guide all arms transfers and use. Irresponsible supply can facilitate serious violations, including attacks against civilians and humanitarian workers. We believe it's essential for the Security Council to systematically integrate weapons and ammunition management into its resolutions. We also urge all states to accede to the international instruments, many of them have been mentioned here, aimed at preventing, combating and eradicating the illicit trafficking of small arms, light weapons and their ammunition. At the regional level, we highlight the adoption in February 2025 of the Regional Roadmap to prevent the illicit trafficking of weapons, ammunition and explosives in Central America and the Dominican Republic. This was a concrete step towards cooperation and shared security, which, as a good practice, we are willing to share with other regions. Mr. President, we are all aware that most conflicts have no military solution, and this is something that we frequently repeat here. Therefore, it is surprising that while we are motionless in inexplicable complicity, showing ourselves incapable of acting to prevent time and again these conflicts from being fueled by weapons, not only small and light ones, but worse still, heavy caliber arms, and with this promoting continued escalation of conflicts and the escalation of violence at the expense of civilian populations, the suffering of women and children, for the exclusive benefit of the pockets of manufacturers, suppliers and intermediaries. They are thriving comfortably, feeding on the blood of others. With these comments, we take note with appreciation of the Secretary-General's report, and we reaffirm our commitment to continue taking action in close coordination with countries of our region and with international and regional organizations such as UNODC, the OAS and UNRELEC in order to reduce illicit arms flows in line with SDG Target 16.4, including through the strengthening and capacity building of our national institutions related to this issue. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Panama for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, President, and thank you to all of our briefers. Addressing illicit small arms and light weapons proliferation is a core peace and security priority, one that we believe could be more effectively managed through full implementation of UN arms embargoes and support for related enforcement mechanisms. For example, the destabilizing activities of the Houthis in Yemen would be more swiftly neutralized if states like Iran were not supplying arms and other support. This situation is exacerbated by support from their proxies. This includes some on the Security Council who block meaningful actions to implement sanctions. These actions include denying snapback of UN sanctions on Iran, obstructing updates to the UN sanctions list, and blocking appointments to sanctions expert panels. Arms embargo mandates are often in the crosshairs in Security Council negotiations. States bemoan illicit arms while also seeking to weaken arms embargoes and other UN mandated actions to stem illicit arms flows. In addition, sweeping discussions of topics that have little relevance to the matter at hand, such as gender identity and sustainable development goals, divert attention from the core issue. We do not support efforts to further this trend, such as the Secretary General's recommendation to enhance cooperation between the first and second committees to further integrate small arms and light weapons control into broader socioeconomic themes. We call on the UN to use its scarce resources on initiatives that will yield tangible benefits for everyone. In that regard, we commend regional initiatives to elicit small arms and light weapons issues. We encourage member states to explore additional measures to strengthen implementation, including enhanced cross-border cooperation. We also recognize useful measures being taken by UN bodies, such as the Counterterrorism Executive Directorate, to identify gaps in national legal and regulatory frameworks on small arms and light weapons control. The UN Office of Counterterrorism and the UN Office of Drugs and Crime are also implementing useful capacity building programs. We welcome the Secretary General's focus on emerging technologies to combat illicit trafficking networks and the opportunities offered by new tracing tools. We urge member states to explore these tools to enhance stockpile management, improve information sharing, and prevent diversion. A good example of how we can work together to achieve concrete results is transitioning the MS mission in Haiti to a gang suppression force. This force will concentrate on Haiti's immediate critical security challenges and lay the groundwork for long-term stability. The Gang Suppression Force and the Support Office will provide support to the Haitian National Police and the Haitian Armed Forces to combat illicit trafficking and the diversion of arms and related material. These are real actions that will have positive effects and provide Haiti with a brighter future. The United States will continue to press forward with initiatives like these, ones that will make a tangible difference in addressing problems within the UN's remit. This includes upholding and enforcing snapback of UN sanctions on Iran and working to strengthen arms embargo mechanisms for Yemen and Libya. We urge all states to support these efforts. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. And allow me to welcome you, Your Excellency, to the Council and commend you and Sierra Leone for putting this important topic on the Council's agenda. And let me also thank our briefers this morning for their important statements. Mr. President, the uncontrolled spread of small arms and light weapons remains one of the most persistent threats to international peace and security. These weapons are often the first to appear and the last to disappear in conflict settings. In this context, allow me to raise 3 key points. First, the impact of small arms and light weapons around the world is wide-ranging and long-lasting. In Sudan, deadly clashes fueled by these very weapons exact an immense toll on civilians, especially women and children, while also deepening an already dire humanitarian crisis. In Yemen, the illicit trafficking of weapons by the Houthis continues to prolong the conflict, with civilians bearing the brunt. And in Haiti, the uncontrolled flow of small arms and ammunition fuels gang violence and undermines the rule of law, as we also just heard from Dr. Descartes. These conflicts, just as other around the world, all have varied causes and consequences. However, it is clear that the proliferation of small arms prolongs them, makes them more deadly, and increases the risk of atrocities against civilians. Controlling the illicit flow of small arms and light weapons is therefore not only a security issue, but also a question of human rights and the protection of civilians. This human cost must remain at the forefront of our minds and continue to guide our responses. This leads me to my second point. There is an urgent need for the international community to strengthen the implementation of existing regulatory measures. Full and consistent implementation of the UN Program of Action and the Arms Trade Treaty, as well as strict compliance with Security Council arms embargoes, is essential to prevent the flow of illicit weapons into conflict zones. Effective marking and tracing systems remain key to ensuring accountability, while targeted capacity building can help states develop the institutional frameworks needed to uphold these commitments. But we also need to go beyond national and multilateral measures. More than 850 million small arms and light weapons are in the hands of civilians across the globe. In this regard, Denmark supports the community-led arms control initiative, which seeks to integrate arms control into peace-building effort at local level. Mr. President, my third and final point. Control of the flow of illicit arms must be comprehensive and address the underlying causes of conflicts. This requires a multifaceted approach that includes peace-building, development, human rights, security sector reform, and governance. We welcome the integration of arms control into Security Council mandates, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration processes, as well as peace-building and sustainable development initiatives, as was also recommended this morning by the Deputy High Representative for Disarmament here in the Council. We believe we can and should continue to mainstream this critical agenda across our work. Partnerships and continued Council support for regional initiatives remain essential. Denmark strongly supports the African Union's Silencing the Guns initiative, which plays a key role in advancing peace and curbing the illicit flows of arms across the continent, and we welcome the statement by Dr. Chambers here today. Mr. President, in closing, controlling small arms and light weapons is essential to ending the many conflicts on our agenda today. Curbing their illicit trafficking is essential to preventing others from erupting tomorrow. Put simply, addressing this issue strikes to the very core of the mandate of this Council. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. Je donne maintenant.
I now give the floor to the representative of France. Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome to New York. Mr. President, we thank the Sierra Leonean Presidency of the Security Council for organizing this open debate on a topic which, of course, very rightly deserves the attention of the Council. And I would like to congratulate Sierra Leone on its presidency and show you that you have the support of France. I also would like to thank the Office for Disarmament Affairs, the Silencing the Guns initiatives of the African Union, the Interpol, and the Volunteering for Development in Haiti. I thank them for their briefings, which showed very clearly how international peace and security can be shaken up by the dissemination of small arms and light weapons. And that was a conclusion that the Secretary General submitted to us under Resolution 2020. Illicit trafficking of small arms fuels armed conflicts, it fuels terrorism and organized crime. In particular, drug trafficking and human trafficking. It undermines also, even after the conflicts have ended, it undermines reconstruction, stabilization efforts. It causes immense suffering among civilians, particularly for women and children. The Secretary General's report notes that firearms are used in about 90% of documented cases of sexual violence during conflict. The international community must remain and strengthen its mobilization to address this scourge. And first of all, we call on all states to join and implement all relevant international instruments in this area. And first among these is the Arms Trade Treaty, which is aimed at preventing the diversion of conventional arms flows and its prevention, and the United Nations Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons. The Program of Action's work, which will continue during their biennial meeting next June, must address challenges posed by emerging technologies, such as, for example, the additive manufacturing. France welcomes progress made on the secure management of ammunition throughout its life cycle under the global framework adopted in 2023, and we're happy to say that the resolution on conventional ammunition sponsored by South Africa, Germany and France was widely adopted a few days ago by the First Committee. Second point, the Security Council must continue to address the issue of small arms proliferation. We welcome the fact that Resolution 2793, adopted last September, gave the new gang suppression force in Haiti a robust mandate to support Haitian armed and police forces in combating the diversion weapons and related materials and implementing the sanctions regimes on this. The Council must ensure compliance with the embargoes it has itself imposed. And in this regard, we are thinking of Yemen, in particular Libya, where the Irene operation by the EU plays an important role. The armed group in the DRC, and we welcome the adoption in June of Resolution 2783. The Council should be able to rely on the panel of experts who play an key role in its work, and we reaffirm our support to the panels and call for the swift recruitment of an expert panel for the 1737 committee, whose mandate will include monitoring an arms embargo to and from Iran. Third point, regional initiatives can also make a significant contribution closely aligned with the realities on the ground to efforts to prevent and eradicate illicit small arms trafficking. In partnership with Germany, France launched a roadmap in 2017 to coordinate our fight against firearms trafficking in Western Balkans. It recently was extended until 2030. Continuing this initiative will help states in the region strengthen and harmonize their legislation on small arms control. Mr. President, statements made today recall for us the human, economic and social and political cost of the proliferation of small arms. In line with the ambition we have in the Pact for the Future, it is our common responsibility to act together so as to stem this scourge. I thank you. I thank the representative of France for his statement.
I give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we thank Sierra Leone for convening this important briefing, and we also want to thank you, for Your Excellency, for chairing it. We express appreciation to the Secretary General for his latest biennial report, and we thank all briefers for providing us with a very holistic picture of this problem. Mr. President, every minute, somewhere in the world, a life is taken by a small arm, not by chance, but because these weapons are easy to find, easy to hide, easy to use, and too often, as we heard earlier by Interpol representative, impossible to trace. Havoc that they create is daily, quiet, almost invisible, yet their cumulative toll surpasses that of most wars. The Secretary General's report confirms what we already know. These weapons thrive in the shadows, in the cracks of governance, in the silences of law, in the failures of accountability. They flow where institutions are weakest, where borders are most porous, and where hope is most fragile. And Dr. Descartes of Haiti presentation was an illustration of that. We all know that large-scale wars capture the headlines, but it is small arms and light weapons that sustain the silent, daily wars on the streets, in homes, in the refugee camps, long after peace agreements are signed. They determine whether children can go to school safely, whether women can live free from fear, whether elections can be held without intimidation, whether peace agreements endure or fall apart. Mr. President, poor stockpile management, unsecured depots, and diverted munitions are silent enablers of this instability. We must enhance weapons and ammunition management. The global framework for true-life conventional ammunition management offers a powerful new tool to address these risks. We join the Secretary General's call for Member States and the Security Council to integrate weapons and ammunition management into peace operations, sanctions regime, and post-conflict transitions. We also stress the importance of such integration of ammunition management into disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration processes, ensuring that former combatants and affected communities can rebuild their lives free from threat of rearmament. So, Mr. President, we live in a time of great and fast technological advancement. However, we believe technology should be used wisely and responsibly. The same innovations that make it easier to produce untraceable weapons can also enable better tracing, data sharing, and transparency. We must therefore make technology part of the solution, not part of the problem. These tools should be used to prevent diversion and strengthen oversight. Slovenia believes that arms control must go hand in hand with the implementation of women, peace and security and youth peace and security agendas. Point emphasized earlier by the High Representative of the African Union. Women should be meaningfully involved in all processes related to the management of small arms and light weapons. Sexual and gender-based violence are fueled by the proliferation and widespread availability of small arms and light weapons in almost all conflict settings. At the same time, many of today's young people have grown up surrounded by firearms in conflict zones, in communities affected by crime and violence, and in digital spaces that glamorize violence. What if, instead, they were empowered to lead efforts on disarmament and to become agents of change? In the end, it is about protection of civilians. It is about whether people can live without fear, whether a community can rebuild after war, whether peace is simply declared or truly lived. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Slovenia. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to thank Sierra Leone for convening this open debate. We are very pleased to see you preside over the Council today, which reflects the importance attached by your country both to this August forum and to the topic under discussion. I would also like to join colleagues in thanking Mr. Ibo, Mr. Shambas, Ms. Andriani, and Dr. Descartes for their insightful briefings that highlighted the security, human, and socioeconomic and several other dimensions of this issue. The illicit transfer and unchecked use of small arms and light weapons, including their destabilizing accumulation, have a direct impact on intensifying and prolonging conflicts, endangering socioeconomic progress, and undermining the prospects of peace and security, particularly at the regional and sub-regional levels. In terms of their impact on local communities, small arms and light weapons are neither small nor light. Illicit weapons impede development prospects, contribute to human rights abuses, and imperil peace, security, and stability. According to empirical data, small arms are the second most used weapons in global terrorist attacks after explosives. President, as highlighted by the Secretary General's report, Africa is one of the regions most severely affected by the illicit trade, misuse, and diversion of small arms and light weapons. Illicit arms have fueled conflicts, amplified internal security threats, served as tools for terrorism, organized crime, political violence, and the erosion of rule of law, thus emerging as one of the foremost drivers of instability in the continent. Small arms and light weapons have also emerged as instruments of choice for non-state actors to perpetrate violence. These concerns are further exacerbated by the increasing sophistication of illicit arms and the accessibility of modernized weapons to illegal armed groups that frequently operate across national borders. Illicit arms thus directly threaten national security, impede counterterrorism operations, and civilian protection. Pakistan is seriously concerned about the presence of stockpiles of sophisticated arms and ammunition in Afghanistan, as noted in findings of the Secretary General's reports. These sophisticated weapons pose a direct threat to neighboring countries. We also have credible information of attempts to smuggle these arms to neighboring countries for terrorist activities. Weapons confiscated at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border are traced back to stockpiles of weapons left behind by foreign forces in Afghanistan and illegal weapons being sold across black markets in Afghanistan. The movement of unmarked or unregistered weapons across the international border sustain and aid non-state armed groups, terrorist networks, and criminal gangs, undermining regional security and stability. We are also deeply concerned at the acquisition and use of these mostly abandoned modern and potent weapons by terrorist groups based in Afghanistan, which continue to pose serious challenge to peace and security in Pakistan and the broader region. Terrorist entities including ISIL-K and TTP, Fitna al-Khawarij, a UN-listed terrorist organization, and the BLA and Majid Brigade, which operate with impunity from Afghanistan, enabled by external financing and support of a principal destabilizing actor in the region, have used these weapons against Pakistani civilians and law enforcement agencies, leading to the loss of thousands of innocent lives. We urge stronger international efforts to prevent access of illicit arms to armed terrorist groups in Afghanistan and to ensure that the Afghan interim authorities adhere to their international obligations and commitments in that regard. The international community needs to step up its efforts and plug gaps in its response to effectively address these threats to international and regional peace and security. President, the evolving nature of warfare and the advent of new technologies present serious challenges in combating the proliferation of increasingly lethal small arms, such as the unmanned aerial vehicles, AI-based weapons, 3D printed small arms, and high-tech night vision equipment. Criminal groups and terrorists are increasingly utilizing technologies like cryptocurrency for anonymous transactions and employing the dark web to evade detection where acquiring such weapons. While new technologies have introduced new challenges in manufacturing and proliferation of illicit arms manufacturing, new avenues of effective control and international cooperation have also opened up, which need to be fully utilized. Traditional arms control measures designed for another era before the advent of these new technologies must keep pace with new developments. We firmly believe that the issue of illicit small arms and light weapons should be addressed comprehensively and in a balanced manner. The United Nations Programme of Action strikes a balance between legitimate security requirements of states and the imperative to address the issue of illicit arms on both the supply and demand sides. We remain committed to its implementation at the national level and call for its full execution at the global level to safeguard and promote international and regional peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, Somalia would like to commend Sierra Leone's presidency for convening this important open debate and welcome you, Your Excellency, Minister Musa Timothy Kabba. We have listened carefully to the briefers' statement and thank them for their contributions. The illicit proliferation, misuse, diversion of small arms and light weapons continue to pose a clear threat to the international peace and security. As the Secretary General's report notes, the illicit transfer misuse, and diversion of small arms and light weapons have continued to fuel conflicts, criminal activities, and undermine the very foundation of safety and stability around the world. The devastating consequences of these criminal activities are felt within our societies, causing immense suffering and hindering development efforts. The emergence of illicitly manufactured, craft-produced, and 3D printed weapons further complicate countermeasures, posing an evolving threat to international peace and security. Mr. President, Africa confronts unique vulnerabilities, including extensive and often artificial borders that facilitate illicit trafficking, coupled with exploitation of ungoverned spaces by non-state armed groups and criminal actors. Effective response must be rooted in respecting the African priorities, strengthening regional mechanisms, and fostering partnership that genuinely empower African solutions. Regional organizations play a crucial role in addressing these challenges. The African Union's flagship Silencing the Gun by 2030 and African Union's strategy represent a continent-wide commitment to ending conflicts and controlling the illicit proliferation, circulation, and trafficking of small arms and light weapons. These initiatives are a testament to our continent's unwavering commitment to preventing, combating, and eradicating the illicit proliferation, circulation, and trafficking of small arms and light weapons in the integrated and holistic manner across the region of Africa. Somalia supports these initiatives and calls for enhanced cooperation between the UN and African Union and sub-regional organizations. We believe that cooperation should include information sharing, coordination strategies, and enforcement measures to disrupt and dismantle transnational trafficking networks that engage in illegal trade of small arms and light weapons. Mr. President, on the national level, Somalia has been working tirelessly to address the threat posed by the proliferation of illicit arms and light weapons, and to effectively manage weapons and ammunition as documented in the Secretary General's report, which recognizes progress in this regard. Somalia has been at the forefront of implementing a robust mechanism to ensure all weaponry remains under stringent state control, and has undertaken initiatives such as enhancing traceability, accountability within our national stockpiles. The establishment of Central Monitoring Department within the Office of the National Security serves as a testament to our commitment to a transparent and accountable arms management. Furthermore, the comprehensive efforts in the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, the DDR, continue prioritizing enhanced federal-state coordination, supporting voluntary defections, and facilitating the sustainable integration of former combatants into civilian lives. These actions are integral to breaking the cycles of violence and fostering sustainable peace in Somalia and in Africa. To conclude, Mr. President, Somalia calls on all member states to renew their commitment to effective arms control within the existing UN and international frameworks. Somalia stands ready to work with all partners toward this goal. The weapons that fuel conflict knows no borders. Our response must be equally unified and resolute. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of China.
Thank you, President. I welcome Foreign Minister Kabba in presiding over today's meeting and thank the briefers for their statements. Small arms and light weapons bear on peace and development. Properly addressing this issue is vital for combating terrorism and transnational organized crime, maintaining regional peace and stability, and achieving the SDGs. According to a recent report released by SG Guterres, the proliferation, misuse, and illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons remain grave concerns, and its governance process remains an uphill battle. Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed the concept of building a community with a shared future for mankind, and successively put forward the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, Civilization Initiative, and the Governance Initiative, contributing China's solutions to global transformation and pressing challenges. This is also vital for the governance of small arms and light weapons. Here, I would like to further elaborate on China's proposals. First, to take multiple measures to tackle both the symptoms and the root causes. Small arms and light weapons are not only a security issue, but also a development and governance issue. Regions such as the Horn of Africa and the Sahel lag behind in economic development, and their people live in poverty and suffer greatly from the proliferation of weapons and violent conflicts. The international community should take concrete measures to promote economic development and social stability in the countries concerned, eliminate the root causes of poverty, violence, instability, and conflicts, and create conditions for fundamental solutions to the issue of small arms and light weapons. All countries should uphold a common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable approach to security, commit to peaceful dispute resolution, eliminate global and regional security threats through dialogue and consultations, and prevent the emergence of new sources of conflict. Second, to practice multilateralism and improve the governance system. The UN should play a leading role in promoting the comprehensive and effective implementation of international legal instruments governing small arms and light weapons. Enhancing the authority, universality, and effectiveness of relevant mechanisms. Achieving mutual reinforcement among various mechanisms, and striving to form greater synergy. The Security Council should provide political support for peace, reconciliation, and post-war reconstruction of the countries concerned, and help them effectively address the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in DDR and the security sector reform. Third, to strengthen capacity building and achieve through-life management. The countries concerned should bear primary responsibility for the production, storage, and transfer of small arms and light weapons. Based on their national conditions, they should make and improve laws, regulations, and institutional arrangements, enhance the effectiveness of law enforcement and control, and eliminate the illegal flow of small arms and light weapons on their territory. The international community, under the coordination of the UN and based on respect for the wills of the countries concerned, should encourage and promote bilateral and multilateral exchanges of experience and pragmatic cooperation among countries and relevant international organizations to enhance the capacity to control small arms and light weapons. Fourth, to exercise caution in arms exports to avoid enhanced risks. Countries should adopt responsible arms export policies, cease using arms trade to interfere in other countries' internal affairs, exercise caution in exporting arms to conflict zones, and refrain from transferring arms to non-state actors. With gang violence still rampant in Haiti and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, countries where those illicit arms and ammunition originate should take concrete actions to promote the effective implementation of Security Council arms embargoes. Terrorist organizations and extremist forces in Syria are growing stronger, and the risk of their resurgence is increasing. Countries should earnestly fulfill their counterterrorism obligations, resolutely prevent small arms and light weapons from falling into the hands of terrorists and extremists, and maintaining regional and international security. Fifth, to focus on technological challenges and promote the use of technology for good. Emerging technologies create development opportunities for countries, but also pose security challenges. 3D printing, modular manufacturing of firearms, and craft-produced weapons are major issues, making it more difficult to control small arms and light weapons. The wide application of AI and big data also provides more means of controlling small arms and light weapons. China advocates technology for good and calls for strengthening exchanges and cooperation within the framework of the UN, advancing the process of small arms and light weapons control in line with the times, and supporting the practical discussions of the open-ended technical expert group of the POA and achieving positive results. President, China has always actively supported and constructively participated in small arms and light weapons governance, earnestly fulfilled its international obligations, strengthened legal and institutional safeguards, adopted a prudent and responsible attitude towards arms exports, and continuously promoted international exchanges and cooperation. Currently, China is working with the UN and the AU through the China-UN Peace and Development Fund on capacity building for African countries in this area, implementing the Pact for the Future and the African Silencing the Guns initiative. Addressing the issue of small arms and light weapons is a long-term task and important mission for the international community. China stands ready to work with all parties to further advance the process, strive to achieve lasting peace, shared security, and a world free from gun violence, and to promote the building of a community with a shared future for the mankind. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. Let me welcome you to the Council and thank Sierra Leone for convening this important debate. I also thank all the briefers for their valuable contributions. As the Secretary-General's report highlights, diversion of illicit small arms and light weapons persists across the entire weapon life cycle, from the point of manufacture, transfer and storage to their eventual use or disposal. This is exacerbated by porous borders, poor stockpile management, and emerging challenges such as 3D printing. Disrupting this pattern is critical for protecting lives in conflict zones and preventing armed violence. I'll make 3 points. First, illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons is a transnational threat. The UK supports capacity building and cross-regional collaboration to enforce arms embargoes, improve tracing, and strengthen stockpile management. Through the UK-supported AMTAG pilot programme, Somalia has become the first country to deploy chemical taggants, which will begin to render its national ammunition stockpiles fully traceable. We commend and support regional and sub-regional approaches, including the African Union's Silencing the Guns initiative. The UK is proud to fund the Nairobi Protocol Review, led by the Regional Centre on Small Arms and Light Weapons, and the UN Institute for Disarmament Research, underlining our commitment to tackling this threat at the regional level. Second, multilateral instruments and transparency mechanisms remain vital. The Programme of Action, the Arms Trade Treaty, the Global Framework, and the UN Register of Conventional Arms all play a role in preventing diversion, promoting responsible transfers, and strengthening national controls. The UK looks forward to contributing to the Programme of Action's expert group on emerging technologies to address challenges posed by polymer, modular, and 3D printed weapons, and to explore opportunities for improved marking and tracing. Finally, President, illicit weapons diversion disproportionately affects women and girls. The UN estimates that 70 to 90% of conflict-related sexual violence incidents involve weapons and firearms. As we commemorate this year the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, effective conventional arms control can play a vital role in prevention. Women should be at the centre of these efforts. Colleagues, the UK remains committed to working to strengthen sanctions enforcement, enhance arms control, and support disarmament and post-conflict stabilisation efforts. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for the statement. It appears
And now I give the floor to the Russian Federation. Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to greet you here, Mr. Minister, in the President's chair, and we are grateful to the Sierra Leone colleagues for having chosen such a relevant issue for our open debate. And we thank the briefers of today for their briefings. We have carefully reviewed the report prepared by the Secretary General on the issue of small arms and light weapons. And we note that, generally, it does accurately reflect the specifics of the topic under consideration. The issue of controlling the supply of conventional arms and military products, including small arms and light weapons, remains relevant. The problem of their diversion, of their illicit circulation, falling into the hands of criminals and terrorists is characteristic for conflicts worldwide. Small arms and light weapons is the most widely used type of weapon, and it is its compact use which results in the greatest number of human casualties, including among civilians. Despite efforts by the international community at national, regional, and global levels, we must nonetheless acknowledge that frequently these efforts are insufficient. In some states, legislation remains insufficiently strict. There are still gaps which persist in export control regimes, and frequently international transfers of small arms and light weapons are made to non-state actors without the necessary authorization from their governments. Driven by profit and sometimes for purely political motives, suppliers of small arms do not consider where, by whom, and for what purposes a given batch of weapons is going to be used. Such indiscriminate practices are especially typical of states with excessive stockpiles of small arms and light weapons, and then the offloading them is a profitable alternative to simply disposal. Another problem is the production of small arms under expired licenses or without any licenses from the technology-owning states. And weapons manufactured in this way are usually sent to third countries, and such fact that such transfers took place are carefully concealed. The lack of transparency results in the fact that small arms often end up in the hands of actors which are subject to Security Council arms embargoes. In this context, the Russian Federation consistently has been paying great attention to controlling the supply of military goods, including small arms and light weapons. Our country has been steadily strengthening its national legislation in this area, and we are ready to share our experience with other interested states. We fully support relevant initiatives in this area in Africa and Latin America. At the same time, we are convinced that the management and circulation of small arms, the establishment of standards for their physical security, marking, record-keeping, inventory, methods and technologies for surplus weapons must remain the inclusive prerogatives of states. Mr. President, the UN Secretary General in his report mentioned the Arms Trade Treaty. In our view, this instrument is, quite frankly, weak, so much so that it simply does not allow to fully resolve the tasks it sets itself. For example, the ATT lacks direct prohibition on unlicensed arms production and transfers to non-state actors, as well as regulation of re-export procedures for military goods. These gaps essentially leave a risk that weapons will fall into the hands of organized criminal and terrorist groups. The practical implementation of the ATT also is something that leaves much to be desired. Some of its participants continue direct or indirect arms and military product supplies to conflict areas. Therefore, we consider that references to this instrument are unnecessary when the standards it contains not only fail to meet realities, but are also being interpreted very loosely by some countries. We remain highly skeptical also about the global framework on the management of conventional ammunition stockpiles throughout their life cycle, which was adopted in 2023 by a General Assembly resolution. We have serious concern about its quasi-control and politically binding nature and the format of its provisions regarding what is called political commitments on managing national ammunition stockpiles. Against this backdrop, we believe that the international community should focus on truly effective measures to curb the illicit circulation of small arms and light weapons. And the Russian Federation consistently has been proposing a number of specific steps in relevant fora. And they include a universal ban on transferring all types of small arms to entities which are not authorized by recipient governments, ensuring strict regulation and direct state control over brokering activities related to arms exports within their jurisdiction, making end-user certificates a mandatory condition for arms export transactions, preventing small arms and light weapons manufacturing under expired licenses or without the license of the technology-owning state, including stopping the practice of minor modifications being made to previously licensed weapons without the developer's consent, and then exporting them as original designs. We consistently advocate continuing discussions on these and other small arms and light weapon control issues at the UN. Of particular importance in this regard is the implementation of the only specialized document in the fight against illicit small arms trafficking, namely the UN Programme of Action to Prevent and Eradicate the Illicit Trade in Small Arms and Light Weapons in all of its aspects and to combat it. We support strengthening joint efforts within the UN General Assembly framework under the Programme of Action. Additionally, if necessary, relevant Security Council sanctions committees can be involved to consider specific cases of violations of arms embargoes imposed by the Council. We are open to cooperation on these issues with all constructive-minded states, and we are ready, upon request, to provide advisory assistance to states interested in studying Russia's experience in the area of small arms and light weapons control. I thank you.
Spasiba.
Thank you very much for your statement.
Give the floor to the representative of Guyana.
Mr. President, Your Excellency, Mr. Musa Timothy Kabba, Guyana commends your decision to convene this open debate on a subject of critical importance in the overall effort to maintain international peace and security. We also thank the Secretary General for this year's annual report and express our appreciation to Mr. Ebo, His Excellency Dr. Chambas, Ms. Andriani, and Dr. Descartes for their invaluable insights. Mr. President, as outlined in the Secretary General's report, the uncontrolled proliferation and misuse of small arms and light weapons remain amongst the most persistent threats to peace and sustainable development, particularly in regions emerging from conflict or grappling with fragile governance structures. These weapons, by virtue of being inexpensive and easy to use, have become the weapon of choice for criminals and are used to escalate communal violence, empower criminal networks, and undermine legitimate state authority. They are also often used in the commission of human rights abuses, including sexual and gender-based violence. Indeed, the report informs that 88% of documented conflict-related sexual violence between 2022 and 2024 involved firearms. Moreover, women were overrepresented among victims of homicide committed by intimate partners or other family members. Small arms and light weapons are also the second most prevalent weapons used in terrorist attacks around the globe. We have seen firsthand in our own region, Latin America and the Caribbean, how illicit arms flows intersect with transnational organized crime, drug trafficking, and piracy, fueling insecurity that disproportionately affects the most vulnerable, including women and children, and as Dr. Descartes reminded in the case of Haiti. Small arms do not merely perpetuate conflict. They delay recovery, disrupt livelihoods, and erode confidence in state institutions. Mr. President, Guyana reaffirms its unwavering support for Security Council Resolution 2220, which reaffirms the responsibility of the Security Council to strengthen arms embargo monitoring mechanisms. The resolution also underlines the need for member states to put in place adequate laws, regulations, and administrative procedures to exercise effective control over the production of small arms and light weapons within their areas of jurisdiction, and over the export, import, transit, or retransfer of such weapons. These measures are aimed at preventing their illegal manufacture and illicit trafficking or their diversion to unauthorized recipients. Mr. President, Guyana shares your view that the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons and their ammunition could only be effectively addressed through a comprehensive and integrated strategy that includes national, regional, and international measures. In this vein, we endorse the Secretary General's recommendation for Member States to strengthen efforts to implement relevant Security Council resolutions related to small arms and light weapons, and to bring national legislation in line with emerging trends and developments. We further urge Member States to subscribe and adhere fully to the UN Programme of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, and the International Tracing Instrument, along with other multilateral and regional frameworks. We further call upon those states who have not yet done so to ratify the Arms Trade Treaty and fully implement its provisions. We have taken positive note of regional initiatives, namely the African Union's Silencing the Guns Initiative, the Caribbean Community Firearms Roadmap, the Central American Roadmap, and other models of regionally driven arms control efforts. We believe that global support for these mechanisms, as highlighted by Dr. Chambas, will contribute to the overall advancement of a comprehensive strategy to address the illicit trade and misuse of small arms and light weapons. We in CARICOM have consistently underscored the human and economic toll of gun-related violence. The region's small island and coastal states, situated along major transshipment routes, bear heavy burdens as victims of weapons that are neither manufactured nor exported from our region. Guyana therefore joins the call for strengthening international cooperation and technology transfer to enhance border management, tracing mechanisms, and forensic capabilities. Suppliers of such weapons and components must also do more to enhance traceability by improving transparency and accountability throughout their supply chain, from raw materials to final distribution. Mr. President, given the number of ongoing conflicts, it is imperative for us to renew global commitment, not only to control the supply of small arms, but to address the demand drivers that sustain illicit markets, such as poverty, inequality, lack of employment opportunities, the impacts of climate change, and weak governance. Guyana also believes that effective arms control must be integrated into peacekeeping, post-conflict peacebuilding, and development strategies, as Mr. Ibo underscored. We are convinced that sustainable disarmament requires both political will and practical support. The United Nations must continue assisting national authorities through capacity building, stockpile management, and cross-border information sharing frameworks. Finally, Mr. President, Guyana reiterates that global peace and security will remain elusive so long as weapons designed for battlefields continue to devastate communities in peacetime. We stand ready to work with all member states, regional organizations, and civil society to advance concrete and cooperative measures against illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in the spirit of shared responsibility and collective security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Mr. President, at the outset, I would like to thank the Republic of Sierra Leone for convening this open debate on small arms and light weapons. I also wish to express my appreciation for the comprehensive and insightful briefings delivered by Mr. Adedeji Ibo, Officer in Charge and Deputy to the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Ibn Chambas, the High Representative of the African Union for Silencing the Guns Initiative, and Mrs. Roraima Anna Adriani, Special Representative of Interpol to the European Union. We have also listened attentively to the civil society briefer. Mr. President, The issue of the illicit flows and trafficking of small arms and light weapons remains one of the gravest threats currently to international peace and security. This is a source of concern based on tangible reality. Our continent, Africa, continues to grapple with the devastating consequences of illicit arms flows. The latest report of the Secretary General paints a deeply troubling picture. Conflicts exacerbated, fueled by small arms and light weapons. Transnational organized crime networks have grown more complex, and terrorist groups have exploited weak border controls to acquire increasingly lethal capabilities. In the Sahel region alone, small arms were used in 70% of all terrorist attacks. Mr. President, Algeria's commitment to combating illicit trafficking in small arms and light weapons is proceeding from our deep belief in this field. This is reflected in the strengthening of our national frameworks through robust legal mechanisms, increased human resources, technical and financial resources, and deepening regional and international cooperation. Algeria enforces a strict national regulatory framework that covers the entire weapons life cycle, from point of manufacturing and importation to transfer, storage, and disposal. In this context, Algeria reiterates its continued commitment to the UN Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, as well as the International Tracing Instrument. Algeria also continues to fulfill its obligations as a party to the UN Convention against Transnational Organized Crime and its Firearms Protocol. Additionally, Algeria systematically contributes to information sharing through Interpol in support of tracing efforts and criminal investigations. We are also closely cooperating with regional mechanisms, including AFRIPOL and the African Union's Counter-Terrorism Center, to exchange information, coordinate operations, and build collective capacities. Mr. President, the challenges we face today have grown more complex. The emergence of 3D printed firearms, homemade weapons, and the online circulation of digital blueprints for weapon manufacturing pose serious challenges to regulatory frameworks. In this vein, we welcome the establishment of the open-ended technical expert group under the UN Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons. We must develop concrete recommendations to address these emerging threats. On the other hand, the Secretary General's report confirms what we have long observed. That is, terrorist groups systemically exploit the poor pile management of certain entities and the porous borders to acquire weapons. Therefore, we must enhance the physical security of stockpiles, improve border controls, and dismantle illicit supply chains, for these enable terrorists to access arms. Mr. President, Algeria wishes to highlight the following three priorities to strengthen international action. First, while the international community has long focused on supply-side measures, The Secretary General's report rightly emphasizes the need to address both supply and demand drivers of illicit arms. This requires tackling the root causes, foremost among them poverty, inequality, weak governance, and lack of economic opportunities. Thus, arms regulation must be integrated into broader development strategies, conflict prevention efforts, and peace-building processes. Second, regional and sub-regional approaches are the cornerstones to address the cross-border nature of illicit arms flows. Therefore, Algeria strongly supports the AU Silencing the Guns initiative and calls for its full implementation. We call upon the Security Council to provide sustained support to regional mechanisms and roadmaps. Third, the gap between needs and resources continues to widen. Many developing countries lack the technical and financial capabilities and capacities needed to implement comprehensive arms control systems. Accordingly, the international community must provide sustained, predictable, and needs-based assistance. In this context, we commend and support the UN Disarmament Fellowship Program, which is a vital tool for building national capacities and training experts in developing countries. To conclude, Mr. President, we call for concerted efforts and decisive action at all levels to shift the balance from instability towards security and to eliminate the threat posed by illicit small arms and light weapons. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement. I wish to remind all speakers to limit their statements to no more than 3 minutes in order to enable the Council to carry out its work expeditiously. The flashing light on the microphone will prompt speakers to bring their remarks to a close after 3 minutes. I now give the floor to the Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Philippines thanks you, Foreign Minister Kabba, for convening this important debate and commends Sierra Leone's leadership in highlighting the impact of illicit arms flows, transnational crime, and terrorism in Africa and the Caribbean. We also wish to thank the briefers for their valuable insights. The Philippines aligns itself with the SG's 2025 report on small arms and light weapons and reaffirms that curbing illicit arms flows is central to sustaining peace and achieving the goals of the Pact for the Future. We share the Secretary General's view that the proliferation and misuse of small arms and light weapons remain among the most persistent drivers of instability, terrorism, and human suffering across regions. As both a donor country and an active member of the UNSCAR, the Philippines reaffirms its strong commitment to advancing global arms control and disarmament initiatives. Through UNSCAR, the Philippines actively supports cooperation with the African Union in alignment with the Silencing the Guns in Africa initiative. UNSCAR-sponsored projects have produced tangible results: the destruction of unserviceable weapons and ammunition in Angola, the elimination of more than 100 seized, surrendered, or obsolete weapons in Malawi, and the establishment of tracing systems to support SDG 16.4.2 reporting in ECOWAS countries, including Benin, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. Other initiatives include training for ECA's member states on implementing the UN Programme of Action and the Kinshasa Convention, livelihood training for blacksmiths in Sierra Leone, and emergency response in Chad following an ammunition explosion. These efforts demonstrate how practical cooperation, while supported by modest yet strategic investments, can save lives, build trust, and advance regional stability. Our own experience has shown that collective approaches are most effective. In Southeast Asia, the Philippines works closely with ASEAN under the 2023 Declaration on Combating Arms Smuggling and through ASEAN-Napol to strengthen border control, tracing mechanism, and law enforcement cooperation. Domestically, we have reinforced firearms regulation and improved data integration between customs, defense, and police authorities. As the Philippines assumes the ASEAN chairmanship next year, we will continue these regional and national efforts to curb the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, consistent with our vision of a peaceful, rules-based, and interconnected Indo-Pacific. Mr. President, the Philippines remains steadfast in its commitment to multilateralism and international cooperation. We will continue to work with all partners within and beyond this Council to strengthen the global framework against illicit arms flows, to uphold the Program of Action and the Arms Trades Treaty, and to ensure that the promise of silencing the guns becomes a reality for all regions. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Philippines for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indonesia is deeply concerned about the grim reality of increasing diversion, illicit transfer, and misuse of small arms and light weapons. These activities continue to fuel conflicts, terrorism, and organized crimes, which inflict untold human suffering, particularly on the most vulnerable. Therefore, addressing challenges emanate from the diversion of and illicit transfer of small arms and light weapons and its ammunition should be an integral part of the whole efforts to creating a sustainable peace. There are 3 points I would like to offer. First, ensuring compliance to and implementation of the multilateral framework to curb illegal trafficking of weapons and ammunition. Existing international mechanisms such as the UN Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons must be implemented in a balanced, full, and effective manner. This requires enhanced capacity building, information exchange, and tracing support. Moreover, all countries must strictly adhere to their treaty obligations by, among others, preventing arms transfer that could facilitate genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or other grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions. Second, bolstering national and regional capacities to prevent the diversion, illicit transfer, and the misuse of emerging technology in small arms and light weapons. Capacity building and practical cooperation that are tailored from unique conditions and needs of each country should be developed to reinforce the capacity of countries to regulate and manage the circulation of weapons. Regional cooperation also remains vital in ensuring coordinated approach against transnational aspect of the illicit transfer. In our region, ASEAN has been implementing the Declaration on Combating Arms Smuggling through improved border management and information sharing. We encourage greater UN support for such ASEAN-led initiatives. Third, integrating post-conflict weapon management with sustainable development. The continued circulation of small arms and light weapons undermines peace building and the rule of law in post-conflict setting. Drawing from our own experience, we believe that disarmament is not merely a logistical task, but a profound social process. It is then vital to strengthen peace-building efforts, including through peacekeeping operations, by integrating the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, or DDR, as well as the security sector reform, or SSR. Mr. President, addressing diversion, illicit trade, and misuse of small arms and light weapons requires collective efforts from all of us. Rest assured that Indonesia's commitment to work together with all member states in addressing such challenges will remain strong. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Indonesia for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of Austria.
Mr. President, Excellencies and colleagues, Austria commends Sierra Leone and the Security Council for addressing the complex challenge posed by small arms and light weapons, a persistent threat to international peace and security, and we align ourselves with the statement to be delivered by the European Union. The UN Secretary-General's report clearly underscores that their misuse, illicit trafficking, and diversion continue to fuel conflict, hinder sustainable development, and endanger civilian lives. These weapons undermine peace, good governance, and human rights, with devastating humanitarian consequences that obstruct access to education, healthcare, and justice, thereby weakening progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals. We wish to highlight 3 priorities today. First, Austria underscores the full and effective implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, ensuring that gender perspectives are integrated across all aspects of our work. Between 70 and 90% of conflict-related sexual violence incidents involve weapons and firearms, a stark reminder of the connection between arms control and prevention efforts. Women, children, and other vulnerable groups remain disproportionately affected by armed violence. Austria, together with UNODA and the Ammunition Management Advisory Team, has been undertaking UN Safeguard trainings on international ammunition technical guidelines for women ammunition technical experts in Vienna for 3 years in a row, with participation from all regions. For over a decade, Austria has contributed to weapons and ammunition logistics, focusing on secure storage and regional cooperation, notably in Africa and in the Western Balkans. Second, strengthening the international arms control framework. Austria recalls that in the Secretary-General's new Agenda for Peace, the urgent need for stronger action on small arms and light weapons was recognized. Implementing this call will help prevent diversion, reduce illicit trafficking, and protect lives. We reaffirm our commitment to upholding and strengthening the international arms control framework, including the Arms Trade Treaty, the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, the Firearms Protocol, and the Global Framework for Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management. Effective implementation of these instruments remains essential to reducing risks and ensuring global stability. And finally, leveraging science and innovation. Austria views science and innovation as powerful tools to reinforce arms control and disarmament efforts. Our active participation in the Science for Peace and Security program illustrates Austria's leadership in integrating innovation into global security efforts. Together with our partners, we are, for instance, developing small portable nanosensors as well as laser-printed early warning sensors that harness quantum detection to identify chemical and biological agents. Through the Secure Black Sea initiative, Austria is also contributing to regional and maritime cooperation to enhance human and environmental security. Mr. President, looking ahead, Austria remains firmly committed to working with UN entities, regional organizations, and civil society to advance global arms control mechanisms. Dialogue, partnership, and trust must guide our collective efforts to curb armed violence, prevent proliferation, and build lasting peace and security for all. And I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Austria for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Chile.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Chile would like to thank the Presidency of Sierra Leone for convening this important open debate and wish you every success during your presidency. We would also like to thank Mr. Adedeji Ebo, Mr. Mohamed Ibn Chambas, Ms. Roraima Anna, and Mr. Anu Dekad for their valuable contributions. Mr. President, small arms and light weapons continue to be the most widely used armaments in contemporary conflicts. Their diversion, illicit trafficking, and misuse fuel armed violence, exacerbate political instability, and undermine peace-building efforts. In many contexts, these weapons constitute the common thread linking organized crime, terrorism, and human rights violations. From a Latin American perspective, we have witnessed how the illicit trafficking of small arms affects human security, strengthens transnational organized crime networks, and hinders sustainable development. For this reason, Chile believes that addressing this issue requires a comprehensive, preventive and multilateral approach, one that combines international cooperation, institutional strengthening and the responsible regulation of the arms trade. Mr. President, Chile underscores the importance of full compliance with the Council's resolution on this matter, including Resolutions 2220 and 2616, as well as the implementation of arms embargoes established by this body. It is a priority to strengthen national capacities for the management, storage and marking of arsenals, as well as mechanisms for traceability and border control. In this regard, we value the efforts of the United Nations and regional organizations, in particular the African Union and ECOWAS, to advance under the framework of the Silencing the Guns in Africa initiative. Chile also considers it essential that the Council promote the implementation of the recommendations contained in the Secretary-General's biennial report on small arms and light weapons, particularly those related to support for disarmament, demobilization and reintegration processes, as well as the responsible management of stockpiles following the lifting of arms embargoes. Mr. President, Chile emphasizes the close link between the control of small arms and the pillars of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, the meaningful participation of women in some processes, as well as the incorporation of a gender perspective in security and arms control policies, not only enhances the effectiveness of these measures, but also contributes to safer and more resilient communities. Chile reiterates its support for strengthening the international framework for a responsible arms trade. We promote the universalization of the Arms Trade Treaty, an instrument that constitutes a key tool to reduce the human suffering caused by illegal and irresponsible arms transfers and to improve regional security and stability. Finally, Mr. President, the international community cannot remain indifferent to a reality that claims thousands of lives each year and perpetuates the cycle of violence. True security is not built with more weapons, but with more rights, more justice and more cooperation. Chile reaffirms its commitment to effective multilateralism and to a Security Council that acts coherently and preventively in addressing the structural causes of insecurity, placing human dignity at the center of its decisions. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Chile for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Australia.
Thank you, President. We thank Sierra Leone for convening this open debate on small arms and light weapons. The devastating human cost of the illicit flow of these weapons is clear. They are intrinsically linked to terrorism and conflict-related sexual violence and impede peace-building efforts. The impacts of illicit weapons are well known, but the means by which they flow and the technologies used to produce them continue to evolve. We cannot be complacent. Our commitment is enduring. Australia is proud to have introduced, during our 213 presidency of the Security Council, the very first resolution on small arms and light weapons adopted in this chamber. In 2013, Australia also chaired the final United Nations conference which led to the adoption of the Arms Trade Treaty, an important tool in preventing the diversion of conventional arms, including small arms and light weapons. In this 25th anniversary of UNSC Resolution 1325, Australia remains committed to the full implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, including protecting human rights and reducing sexual and gender-based violence. Australia wants peace and stability. Building trust is important to peace building and conflict prevention, a key Australian priority. We are pleased to be actively engaged with the United Nations Peacebuilding Commission and have tripled our contribution to the United Nations Peacebuilding Fund. We are encouraged by consensus outcomes at the 2024 United Nations Programme of Action Review Conference and the 2025 Arms Trade Treaty Conference. Australia wants to build on this positive momentum and is pleased to nominate to chair next year's 9th biennial meeting of States to the United Nations Programme of Action. Australia welcomes the adoption of the global framework for through-life conventional ammunition management. As Vice Chair of the first meeting of states in 2027, we will work to advance this important framework. We know regulating illicit firearms significantly reduces diversion risks. Last year, Australia announced a national firearms register to facilitate national tracking of illicit firearms in near real time, enhancing police and community safety. This is the most significant uplift in our firearms management systems in over 25 years. International cooperation and assistance are vital for effective implementation of the Programme of Action. As a founding donor of the UN Trust Facility supporting cooperation on arms regulation, we support continued efforts to build states' capacity and encourage civil society's valuable work. We call on states in a position to do so to provide capacity-building support where it's most needed. Australia is committed to addressing the threats posed by illicit small arms and light weapons to prevent conflict and build a more peaceful, stable and prosperous world. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Australia for the statement. And I'll give the floor to the representative of Spain.
Mr. President, I'd like to begin by thanking the Presidency of Sierra Leone for convening this important timely, open debate. The transnational nature of organised crime and terrorism makes it impossible for any single country to confront them in isolation. International cooperation is therefore an indispensable element in combating transnational crimes, especially the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons, and in adopting the necessary preventive measures to avoid the proliferation of such weapons. This multilateral framework provides an ideal forum for addressing this issue. President, the first point I wish to emphasize concerns the recirculation of small arms and light weapons and their ammunition on the black market. Data show that most illicitly trafficked weapons are not detected at the time of diversion or trafficking, but only when they reappear in other criminal contexts. This is largely because investigations and judicial proceedings tend to focus on crimes other than arms trafficking, such as drug trafficking or terrorism, thus relegating the tracing of a weapon's origin to a secondary issue. In many cases, the most common charge is illegal possession of weapons, which is easier to prove than trafficking or illegal manufacture. This practice limits investigations and forfeits the opportunity to identify the sources and routes of illicit arms trafficking. To address the roots of illicit arms trafficking, what we need is a proactive investigative strategy, one in which the weapon itself becomes the central focus of the investigative process. This involves establishing specific procedures for the collection and analysis of information about weapons, incorporating international cooperation and financial intelligence tools from the outset, and providing investigators with adequate technical means, such as comprehensive national firearms registries containing information on manufacturers, transfers and users. Investigations into crimes involving firearms, in addition to collecting the evidence common to other criminal offences, require the detailed gathering and recording of specific data about the weapon, its components and ammunition. Such identification is essential to determine whether the weapon was manufactured or transferred illegally, to support investigations and to underpin judicial proceedings against those responsible. President, at the multilateral level, we have UN instruments against arms trafficking which provide a common legal framework for preventing, detecting and sanctioning this phenomenon through treaties such as the UN Programme of Action to prevent, combat and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, the International Tracing Instrument, and the Protocol against the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms. Under the UN Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime. These are international standards that have been established to promote cooperation amongst states. Regionally, in addition to exchanging information on a regular basis, platforms for cooperation dealing with illicit arms trafficking or related crimes such as organised crime or terrorism contribute to improving our understanding of the harmful nature of these transactions and can lead to joint actions on the basis of intelligence. In this regard, Spain has assumed a leading role in prioritizing and implementing actions to combat illicit arms trafficking within the 2022-2025 MPACT cycle, the European multidisciplinary platform against criminal threats. Through the Spanish Guardia Civil, we have participated in directing operations that encompass the detection, monitoring and dismantling of firearms trafficking routes, as well as the advanced control of their components and their use in criminal activities. President, it's only through international cooperation, technical specialization and the use of shared information that it will be possible to weaken illicit arms markets and consequently reduce the operational capacity of transnational organized crime and terrorism. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Spain for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Egypt.
Mr. President, I wish to congratulate Sierra Leone on assuming the chairmanship of the Council in November and commend the presentation of the Secretariat for the report of the Secretary General on Small Arms and Light Weapons drafted pursuant to Security Council Resolution 2220 of 2015. Illicit flow of small arms and light weapons has become over the past years a menace of a multifaceted nature, particularly in the Middle East and Africa, due to the diversion of these weapons to non-state actors in a way that causes instability, threatens state institutions, and erodes momentum towards achieving development. This is a phenomenon that requires immediate attention and more tangible measures by the United Nations, including by the Security Council, while noting the need for disarmament discussions at the Security Council to be addressed in a comprehensive manner that balances both conventional and non-conventional tracks. Cognizant of the detrimental impacts of the illicit flows and transfers of weapons, Egypt has always been a staunch supporter of strengthening the legal framework and operational tools to face this recurrent threat. Accordingly, allow me, Mr. President, to reflect Egypt's position in the following 4 points. First, the need to preserve the sovereign right of states to acquire and manufacture conventional arms for their self-defense and security needs, in line with the UN Charter and to ensure that the supply of small arms is limited only to governments or to entities duly authorized by them. Second, the centrality of the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons and its international tracing instrument as an essential instrument in the eradication of illicit trafficking of small arms. Third, the added value of the global framework for through life conventional ammunition management as a voluntary instrument for addressing existing gaps, while underscoring the necessity of maintaining a separation of tracks between processes covering small arms on the one hand and ammunition on the other hand. Fourth and lastly, the importance of regional efforts in tracking the illicit flow of small arms and light weapons and the need to maintain solid and predictable financing to assist states at the national and regional levels, while highlighting the pivotal role of the AU roadmap on silencing the guns in this regard and Egypt's long-standing commitment in supporting its implementation and engaging in all balanced discussions that aim at tracking this eminent threat. And I know that my dear brother, Mohammed bin Shambas, our leader on that, is listening to us. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. I thank the representative of Egypt for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we thank also Sierra Leone for convening this important open debate and the briefers for their insightful comments. We also welcome the Secretary General's report. Portugal wishes to highlight 3 points. First, the proliferation and misuse of small arms and light weapons constitute a threat to international peace and security. Some of the challenges in this context are long-standing. Transnational organized criminal networks or violent extremist groups exploit weak border control and poor stockpile management to transfer and divert arms. In turn, these arms fuel conflict and regional instability, notably in fragile contexts like the Sahel, the Great Lakes, Syria, Yemen, or Haiti, while also contributing to sexual and gender-based violence. Some of the challenges are more recent. 3D printing, modular weapon design, the use of polymer material, or the growth of craft-produced arms have complexified the scenario. These new and emerging technologies complicate tracing efforts and effective arms control. Second, the international community already has the instruments at its disposal to tackle these challenges. The Arms Trade Treaty and the Firearms Protocol already establish a robust normative framework. We call on all member states to ratify these treaties. These legally binding instruments are then complemented by initiatives such as the UN Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons and its international tracing instrument, the UN Register Convention Arms, and the Global Framework for Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management. Portugal was proud to be member of the Bureau of the Fourth Review Conference of the Programme of Action on AS Small Arms and Light Weapons, whose consensual outcome must be thoroughly implemented. In the area of peacekeeping, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration processes, coupled with Security Council arms embargoes, are also important instruments and must be effectively enforced. Part of implementation requires sustainable funding, and this is why Portugal is a traditional contributor to the AT&T as well as the UN Trust Facility supporting cooperation on arms regulation. Third, state-to-state cooperation is key. Regional and sub-regional processes to strengthen border security, to monitor cross-border arms trafficking, to share information and best practices, and to coordinate on export and import licensing systems must be supported by the UN and particularly by the Security Council. Apart from strong cooperation within the European Union, Portugal is also proud that cooperation within the framework of the community of Portuguese-speaking countries is increasing. The recent establishment of a CPLP network of national focal points on firearms and explosives, a CPLP Commission on Arms and Explosives, or the translation into Portuguese of the EU's Frontex Guide on Firearms are examples of this enhanced cooperation. In conclusion, while the challenges posed by small arms and light weapons remain and continue threatening international security, we must make full use of the multilateral instruments at our disposal while also investing in greater cooperation. If elected to the Security Council for the 27-28 mandate, Portugal will certainly build upon this useful discussion and work towards developing and implementing effective mechanisms of arms control. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Portugal for the statement. And I will give the floor to the representative of Germany.
Mr. President, thank you very much. We thank Sierra Leone for convening this important open debate today. When Kofi Annan said, "Small arms are the real weapons of mass destruction," he captured the profound impact of these weapons on peace, on security, on human lives across the globe. And nearly 2 decades later, his statement remains painfully true. Around the world, small arms fuel violence, including sexual and gender-based violence. They fuel regional instability, they fuel terrorism and crime. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, firearms are used in up to 7 out of 10 homicides. But there is hope, and let me highlight 3 points. First, we have seen renewed commitment to addressing the threat of small arms, especially during last year's review conference on the Programme of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, which was diligently chaired by Costa Rica. So we call on all member states to continue their engagement as we want to do. Let us work towards achieving tangible results and keep the topic high on the agenda. Secondly, we are encouraged by the overwhelming support for this year's first committee resolution on through-life ammunition management, which shows that there is an international consensus. We commend South Africa's leadership in the successful preparatory meeting on the global framework following its agreement in 2023 during Germany's chairmanship of the open-ended working group. We must maintain this spirit and momentum and we call upon all states to actively engage in the upcoming reporting process to ensure the global framework's effective implementation. And finally, we are inspired by the growing engagement of civil society actors and NGOs whose efforts are vital in tackling the small arms challenge through research, innovative solutions, and grassroots awareness building. Supporting them is one of Germany's key priorities, and we are grateful for the work of the UN Trust Facility supporting cooperation on arms regulation and supporting NGOs, and proud to be the largest contributor this year. Mr. President, to ensure our efforts remain effective, we do need to address challenges from new and emerging technologies, such as 3D printed small arms. These fuel illicit markets, organized crime and armed violence, and we are proud to provide financial support to the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research on their workshop series on this issue. And Mr. President, let me end by saying that Germany is ready to continue to contribute, and we lead as the second largest global donor for small arms control and ammunition management and support projects with a combined value of $20 million annually. We are committed to driving progress in the field, also through strong political engagement, and I think it is very good that this matter is on the agenda of the Security Council, and if elected to the Security Council, I want to assure you that Germany will ensure that the fight against the proliferation of small arms, light weapons, and ammunition continues to receive the attention it deserves. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Germany for the statement. There are still a number of speakers remaining on my list for this meeting. I intend, with the concurrence of the members of the Council, to suspend the meeting until 3 p.m. This meeting is suspended.